How are you, folks? Enzo DiCostanzo, clinical professor of economics and finance at St. Peter's in Jersey City. And today is part 2 of our personal consumption expenditure lectures. And there'll be maybe, 10 of these or so or something like that. But there'll be quite a number of these things are going to be out there that we need to get out there to you guys. And I'm going to try to get the reading packet to you in about 2 weeks or so. You get the reading packet, and we'll take it from there. So you have a whole month to prepare for the final exam, reading a couple articles and a couple definitions, per day. Okay. So yeah, let's pick up from yesterday. What is a recession, and are we in one now? Recession fears are rising as the Fed raises interest rates and the U.S. economy contracts in 2 consecutive quarters. If we go back to our notes here, our output notes, our economic output notes, we can see that we've had a couple negative quarters because the GDP numbers don't come out every month like the personal consumption numbers come out. So for 2022, this is nominal, and that's not what's generally read, though. It's the real reading. So we were 20 trillion, we were 19, 19.9, 19.8, and 9.5. So obviously this is not plummeting, but you see this is backing down a bit. And it's it looks like it's the import-export numbers that are in decline. That's what we're importing. So the exports are first, imports are second. Well, yeah, so we have a bigger deficit. So we're buying more internationally, and what we're sending out isn't, even though it's increasing, but it isn't keeping up. So that delta it's a bigger negative delta. That's the problem, really. Yeah, the government spending is about even Steven, but that's what's knocking it down a bit, and you're getting slight negatives or slight declines in some of these other categories here. Whatever this is non-durables or something. What is this thing? Yeah, this is non-durables, declined a bit. Okay, so you're getting those movements. So here, let's look at the deltas. These are implicit rates, contribution. Yeah, these are level changes. So you had a negative level there, a negative level. So instead of us trying to do the math in our head, so obviously investment, gross domestic investments decline. These are all in decline. And you have to be careful, which one of these are plus, which one is here. You had a pretty big decline here in the net number. Okay, we got to be careful which ones are plus, which ones. The government spending went down, so you had a lot of negatives in Q2 2022, which led to sort of the classical definition of a recession, which was you have more than 2 quarters of economic activity or economic output decline. But certainly the topic of the day is interest rates and how the financial markets are going to behave because of that. You've had a big decline in the financial markets, and I think we looked at that in previous periods this year. The International Monetary Fund lowered its forecast for the United States and for global economic growth as soaring inflation, the spillover from the war in Ukraine, cut into household purchasing power. Though the recessions can be painful and scary, they're a recurrent feature of the economy. You're going to have that in the business cycle. So I have a couple definitions: economic indicators and business cycles, and we'll post those definitions, relatively soon. What's a recession? The National Bureau of Economic Research defines it as a decline or significant decline in economic activity that's spread across the economy that lasts more than a few months. So I don't know if that's vague. I don't think that's. Being a math guy, I'm a little more sort of exact in my definitions, but that's pretty good. Now, what the White House has been saying is that okay, fine, you have economic output decline, but employment numbers are growing and wages are growing, and yet you don't have high unemployment rates and things. So they're pointing to other areas, even though inflation's up there, but they're pointing to the employment numbers. But that's a lag right now is really what I think that is. I think that the bad news is going to catch up across all of the categories. So now from inflation being a bad news category, now we've economic output. So you have two of the three that are bad news categories, and we're not in a recession. I mean, I guess that's the times we live in, to sit there and say, hey, don't believe what you're seeing. Right. I mean, that's the White House of today. And that's the Democratic Party of today, which is unfortunate. So it's not Clinton's, it's not Bill's Democratic Party any longer. That's for sure. The definition is loose because the NBER ultimately declared in 2020 downturn that started the COVID, that a recession only lasted a couple months. I read somewhere that recessions generally last about a year, 10 months to 12 months, something like that. I read that recently somewhere. Recession dates are determined by the Business Cycle Dating Committee, and it identifies 12 recessions dating back to 1948, or one every 6 years. So we have some sort of analytical work being done in determining how long these things are, when they begin and when they end. We always love an exact something, right? But with people and emotions and 7 billion people and all these different countries and 200 countries or whatever it might be, and sit there and say, well, we're going to get some math and it's going to completely describe it and completely predict it, which is even the bigger goal, isn't really something that anybody really knows anything about forecasting would say with a lot of confidence, because you're dealing with people and who aren't very predictable, aren't very logical all the time, no matter who it is, DeSantis down in Florida, whoever it might be. But also the areas to look at beyond GDP. This says gross. Yeah, this is reversed. It's got to be GDP. Yeah, GPD somehow. Employment, consumer spending, retail sales, other economic data. Now, with 6 weeks left in the course, I'm not going to go into retail sales. Consumer spending, we're going to spend our time on, but I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on unemployment and things of that nature. But retail sales, I think, is a new data set that I got to start talking about in some of my future classes, which it's in the census. So that's a third place to get data. So Bureau of Labor Statistics is a place, Department of Commerce is a place. Now the Census Bureau is our third place, and the fourth, Federal Reserve is another one. What criteria does the committee use? It uses a range of economic data: gross domestic product, employment, household income, consumer spending, industrial production. The panel considers those figures in tandem, and it doesn't make these decisions in a day or two. It takes some time to really, at a very academic pace, to sort of really sort through every single piece of things and say, hey, very forensically, what are we doing here, and what is this telling us? So no figure necessarily stands above the others. Okay, and so there's the current Business Cycle Dating Committee chairperson, who's a professor at Stanford. Mr. Hold's committee says the committee generally knows the recession, knows it when it sees it, okay, and includes a sharp drop in output and employment. So we haven't had the employment drop. We've had the bad news in inflation, mildly bad news in output, and people are working, kind of a thing. Well, I mean, I think that has a short life, which is unfortunate. I think next year is going to be quite a year, 2023. The tough part is determining just when it starts and ends. The task the committee carries out ever so carefully. This is why the committee waits a while to identify the dates. It wants all possible data to have been collected and finalized every time we ultimately called a recession. There wasn't any doubt. My definition from my NJT days is 2 consecutive quarters of fall in gross domestic product of recession. That's generally the rule of thumb that I use. The IMF uses that definition, but also the committee just looks at it, and which I guess it shouldn't, with a very wide field, right? The pandemic-induced downturn lasted a few months, but certainly qualified as a recession. The committee eyes, because of its severity, says alternatively, a modest decline in output over 6 months would likely not meet the panel's definition, because the panel only considers significant declines over a period of time. Now, just like the early 80s or the early 90s or whatever it was, we had those sort of 2 recessions, sort of a smaller one then a bigger one. Or I forget which was, but there was a bigger one, then a smaller one, or smaller one, then a bigger one. But we had 2 sort of back-to-back. I think it was the early 80s. And I think we're there again, in my humble opinion. But again, you're asking a bunch of scientifically artistic people, or scientific people, which however you want to look at it, to sort of make this make these decisions. It's almost like the Supreme Court of economics in a sense. But again, and especially the smaller businesses that shut down, that's certainly and a lot of them never came back. Walmart was open and Home Depot was open. But and I remember it was an awkward feeling time, to say the least. It says recessions are like snowflakes. Okay, if you want to look at it that way, fine. So but again, this was in the journal. Yeah, this was in the journal. This wasn't from my set of notes. And it says the recession that began in 2007 after the housing crash lasted a year and a half, so it lasted 18 months, so it's not much longer than 8, 9 months, or 10 months. The pandemic-induced recession lasted a few months, and you have to look at the depth. In 2020, employment fell, but in 08 and 09, right? It says it fell 14% and about 6% from 08 time, but only about 1% in 19. So from 1980 to the Great Recession to the pandemic crisis, you have varying levels of employment. The number of employed persons, whatever, the couple 100 million people, whatever, it's 200 something million people that work. 1 second, folks. And we have those employment. And again, just very quickly, which I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to burn too much. So I want to get to the material for the. I want to get to the material for the final exam, which is labor statistics, employment, and I think this is non-farm folks working. Do I have the 08 numbers? Yeah, well, we were at 138, went down to 133 or so. So we had year-over-year percentage changes, 3, 4, 5% at one point was our year-over-year change. If you start summing up all of these numbers, now this is every month per month. This is going to add up to maybe millions of jobs. Let's see how these add up. So we say equals sum when it just stops being negative, somewhere in 2010. So we lost 8. Is that 8 million? Yeah, we lost about 8 million jobs because there were a bunch of 700s here and 8 million. Wow. Okay. So with the pandemic in 2020, okay, well here 20 million just in a shot in April. You had 8 million over a couple of years. You had 20 million, boom, all at once, and then we added back. Now again, let's just see. Have we replaced those 20 million yet? Let's see. Yeah, we replaced it, and then a little bit, about 1.5 million over. But then if you include March, where we sort of knew something was coming, this is 21. That's almost 22. So yeah, we've about broken even. We've replaced everyone we lost back from the. In terms of non-farm, there's other measures here. What else is here? There's that's average hourly earnings, ratios. That's unemployment level. Yeah, this is the employment level. So it's another way to look at it. Just how you classify the folks who work. But again, I don't want to spend a lot of time. I'm not really going into employment numbers in this particular course because we only have 6 weeks to go. The difference between a recession and depression. A depression is a more severe version of a recession, and I don't think there is a definition out there that economists. I've never seen I've seen a description, but not really a definition. The San Francisco Fed that during the Great Depression from 29 to 33, the inflation-adjusted output fell nearly 30%, and the jobless rate hit nearly 25%, according to speech by former Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke. The MBER doesn't differentiate between recessions and depressions. Okay, so that's who defines that. Okay, so this particular committee just looked at the term of it, doesn't say, okay, well now we're in, but because it's a scary word to be very, and even if you're very young, you still see those pictures in your head. So still see those, the jobless workers waiting for food in New York, circa the 30s, and whatever the employment rate hit 25%. I don't think that we hit that. I don't think we hit those levels of unemployment here, but let's just check. Level, labor force, civilian labor force, population. Here's unemployment rate. We had 9% in the Great Recession era. The middle one was 9, and I don't think we had big. Yeah, we didn't hit big numbers in the pandemic years. Maybe 14% or so, but it wasn't 25, and it wasn't even 20. Okay. It's in the early part of 2020. It says if GDP falls but employment rise, is that a recession? Well, it says that situation is unlikely to arise, but that's where we are now. Funny enough, employment typically falls during a recession as companies lay off workers and stop hiring until the outlook improves. Or the question has gained new relevance. Employment has risen strongly through the first 3 months of this year, but GDP has contracted in the first couple quarters. Okay. And it says Mr. Hull can speculate on whether the U.S. is currently in a recession. Points committee's policy is not commenting on the matters until after the panels have scrutinized the data and made official determinations. We don't get involved in hypotheticals for things that haven't happened yet. Is a steep fall in the stock price a sign of a recession? Well, I mean, you had a big stock market decline, right, in the 80s and in the sort of in 87, right? But the economy kept growing. Okay, so again, trying to make it scientific is, we're very addicted to physics, even though most people don't like. You say physics, most people don't like physics or don't know what physics is, but don't like it and don't know about it, or took it and sort of hated it or something. But we all want to be physics. We all want to turn this into a science, and all you can do is look at the data that happens and try to find the patterns as best you can. That's really all you can do here. And then it says if there's a recession 22, it would be like something that we haven't experienced yet. Well, it says it might be different from past ones, and because one of the main indicators because of unemployment. Okay, well, but again, the government spending all that money and so sort of supporting the markets. Is this a pattern for future future governmental solutions or governmental policies to slowdowns of one way or another? We'll see. We'll see. Okay. All right. We have a lot of other stuff to do here. So we're going to look at this rate stuff next time. So this will be the next video. So I'll just sort of indicate that. And also, while we're talking here, we can just quickly just sort of jump back to the to this other part here. We sort of cut this in half last time, the whole personal consumption expenditure discussion. So we'll pick up for the index versus the consumer price index versus the personal consumption expenditure index, the Department of Commerce's version versus the Labor Department. It feels like they should have a softball game down in Washington or something, right? So the CPI is the one that's sort of the economic indicator that's discussed in the media a lot. The Federal Reserve prefers the PCE price index when gauging inflation that's been used strongly for about a decade or more, and gauging inflation and measuring the overall stability of the United States. There's also the producer price index, which is the price of inputs. It says, why does the Fed prefer one index over the other? Because the CPI is it's like that Michigan survey. It goes back a long time, maybe not as long, but I think it goes back. No, actually, the consumer price index I think goes back to the 20s and 30s. Right, the Michigan sentiment survey goes back to the 40s. So the CPI is a little bit older. So this metric is composed of a broad range of expenditures. Where the PCE price index is also weighing by data acquired through business surveys, which tends to be a little more. So I guess it's the source of the data. The Commerce Department gets it from businesses, and the CPI and the Michigan index get it, or the Michigan survey get it from sort of the consumers. The CPI, on the other hand, provides more granular transparency in its monthly reporting. The economists studying the data can clearly see categories like cereal, fruit, apparel, vehicles. So there's a lot of detail that comes from the labor statistics. The Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reports. When you see the price of eggs on Fox News and the price of butter, that's where they just get the percentages and just make a nice graphic on Fox News. Is basically what those guys do. Another difference between the price index and the CPI is that the Commerce Department's price index uses a formula that allows us for changes in consumer behavior and changes that occur in the short term. These adjustments are not made in the CPI formula. These factors result in a more comprehensive measurement of inflation. The Federal Reserve depends on the nuances that the Commerce Department price index provides, revealing that because even minimal inflation can be considered an indicator of a growing and a healthy economy. There's advantages, pros and cons, one over the other. So we'll look at those 2 pages, and then we'll hit that last model. So the advantages and disadvantages of the personal consumption expenditure. The data provides a glimpse into how the economy is doing, or the state of the economy. When people are spending without hesitation, it means the economy is doing well. When they're cutting back on spending, it points to problems with the overall economic picture. So spending is certainly a big part of either one of these indices. The Commerce Department's index isn't as well known to the general public as the CPI, but the CPI uses a household survey created by Bureau of Labor Statistics to determine the direction of the prices. But where the Commerce Department's one is broader because it takes data from businesses and corporations and also takes the GDP measurements into account. So the Commerce Department considers a broader spectrum of goods and services, notably those purchased by households across the country, while the CPI counts only for households in urban settings. I don't know if you guys knew that, but it's only sort of in the cities that the CPI does its surveys. The personal consumption expenditure price index is also much less volatile compared to the Commerce Department's one. Doesn't move around as much as the CPI does, which is influenced by major price movements in products like gasoline. And the Commerce Department has some statistical techniques that's supposed to smooth the swings out. But if you're smoothing out the swings, what are you really doing? Are you really reporting data, or are you reporting some statistically adjusted data, right? Or some, you're adjusting your models to do something, to maybe tell a story. Now that the raw, I care about the raw data. That's really and what that pattern tells us. Well, it's a preferred metric. Well, here, right? If you got a speeding ticket, you could go to court and say, oh yeah, well, if you average out my driving for the week, it's I'm not going to be over the speed limit. That's basically see if that argument works in court if you get a speeding ticket somewhere. So, while it's the preferred metric used by the Fed, there's some distinct problems with the Commerce Department's index. One is that it takes into account GDP, which is a quarterly number, and the inflation index, or the consumer price index, is measured monthly, but by the Bureau of Economic Analysis. The agency must fill in the gaps by using retail sales every month. So you're using a third using the Census Department's data. So, but not that that's bad, but we're always searching for some kind of consistency. And believe me, it's near impossible to say, okay, well, in the 70s we computed it this way, and now with the major computing power that we have, we're going to try to either compute it the same way or try to be consistent with 1945 or 1965 or 1975 or 1985. It's something that you can't really do. So anyway, the Commerce Department takes into account price data from business corporations along with the GDP. There's a wider range of people for the Commerce Department's measurements, including households and organizations. And the Commerce Department isn't as volatile as the labor statistics consumer price index. The negative is that it's a monthly measure, but uses quarterly data, and data from consumers may not be as reliable, or whatever that means, whatever the not reliable means. And we have an example here of the personal consumption expenditure, services, goods, durables, non-durables. These are just some of the definitions here. A service is anything that an individual, a business provides to an individual they can't do for themselves. You shouldn't represent yourself in court. You shouldn't prescribe medications to yourself, which you legally can't really do. And you shouldn't try to change the transmission on your car yourself and those kinds of things, right? You should leave it up to the experts to do that. Banks do financial services and whatever. Okay, there's a landscaping company, but you can cut your own grass. So hopefully you're able to do that. For goods categories, there's durables, non-durables. Durables is a car, furniture. Non-durables is food, vitamins, clothing. But my clothing generally lasts quite a while. I'm not rolling around on the grass in my suits any longer. As a kid, we were doing that sometimes. Got in trouble for that. Personal consumption expenditure numbers show how Americans collectively spend their money. Tracked from month to month is indicator of the health of the economy overall. That's what the personal consumption expenditure number is. We have an index version of that. We have a dollar version of that. It's a key component of this index, which tracks inflation, deflation, and consumer prices over time. And again, comparing the Commerce Department and the Labor Statistics Department, the CPI is compiled monthly, and it's based on a survey of urban consumers. It measures the price of a basket of household goods and services that most people buy regularly. Its movements from month to month show whether the prices paid by consumers are going up or down. The BEA, it says, well, the Commerce, right, the statistical group and the Commerce Department developed that index and record the change in the price of basket of goods from month to month. The broader scope as it factors in price changes in the entire output of the economy as well as out-of-pocket costs to consumers. The PCE data for the 1 year period ending April 2022 shows a steady rise in consumption expenditures from about 15.6 to about 17 billion. So that's the monthly numbers, and I'm just going to go to my numbers here. That's the annual tables, which are there. These are the monthly ones. Okay, that's real index, and here's this is the nominal one. So let's see what these guys are talking about. April 2022, fifth. So we're talking about April at some point. Yeah, here's April right there. And April, 15 to about 17, 15 and a half, about 17 trillion. Right, this is trillion, right? Because it's billion, so another two numbers places. So it's 115 billion, but then it's the 17 makes it 17 trillion. So yeah, so this is This is again, they're discussing the nominal one, which is what the folks who made these notes are looking at. An inflation rate of 6.3%. Yeah, 6.4, whatever. So that's the price index. It's about 6.4. And like I said, we're going to get into where all this stuff comes from. But like I had said to you, the initial set of tables, if you look here, just going over our list here, price index. This is what is this? Personal consumption by major product type. That's a price index. Price index for personal consumption. That's a monthly number. These are annual and quarterly numbers. So these are two price indexes here. These are percentage changes. This is major product type. This is real major product type. This is nominal major product type. This is percent changes. Those are all sort of grouped together. And this is percent change from preceding period. Instead of a year ago, it's just preceding period means the last quarter, last month. These are monthly. This is a monthly reading. This is a month. Yeah, these are all monthly readings. Yeah, these are the monthly ones. These are the real ones, which are here. Oh no, this is nominal. So this is nominal, real, and these are the indices. These are U.S. dollars in nominal and real, and these are monthly in nominal and real, and also the percentage changes. And I don't know if the index is there an index in here? Let's see, consumption expenditure, major product type, percent change. Well, here, doing the percent changes from preceding period. This is from preceding period and personal consumption, percent personal consumption expenditures, right? Project type, fine. Percent. This is percent change from preceding period. Real. Okay, yeah, this is the real one, and this is the nominal percentage change. Okay, so you have a couple. But yeah, the monthly one's the real and the nominal, and the percentage change is the real and the nominal. And like I said, as we go through everything, we'll start. We're working on the annual ones right now. Okay, right now we're working on the annual ones. So we validated some of those numbers, and so at the end of the day, right, personal consumption allows economists and individuals and corporations to see how the economy is faring month to month, how consumers spend their money. It also shows how people change their buying habits and what price changes. So if you think about the Facebook and all of these types of platforms, what they care about is you clicking on likes. And do you like Pepsi Cola? Do you like Dr. Pepper? Do you like drinking just water? What do you like? What do you buy? Now, as I look at my website pages, the Warren Buffett book comes up, news about the football giants comes up, news about the Yankees comes up, news about the Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Supreme Court news comes up. All the things I sort of follow somehow magically always seem to appear on my screen. Okay, so recession, where are we now? And yeah. Yeah, so this is what's next. So this will be the third video. Will be something like this. But I'll make it some other color. I'll make that green. So the Fed. This is about Treasury instruments, inflation again, and some other comments in here. So we'll do another. This will be part 3. Will be this stuff. Okay, and this was July. The July meetings. Yeah, this is from the July meetings. Okay. All right. So the third part of what? So today's lecture and everything was what's a recession? Are we in one now? The price index versus the labor statistics department versus the commerce department, advantages and disadvantages of the two indices, and then we're going to work out these 3 tables, and that'll be your part 2. Okay, so we're here. So what we need to do is we need to get the data for real personal consumption expenditure first. We need to get that data. And this is the same sort of activity. Table 236 will be next. Okay, so we're going to head to here. BEA. We could go right to interactive data. Here, click on BEA. Now we'll talk about this press release. We'll talk about this thing. And this is the interactive data. And we're going to go to the second, section 2, which is personal income and outlays. 236. Oh yeah, this is annual. Right? And what do? We modified this. We want annual numbers. The first year is to be 08 and refresh. That's it. That's what this looks like. So whatever, it's 14 of these things. So we have 11, 12, 14. We got 14. And we're going to go through the same steps. So now we'll just download the data into Excel. Again, it's not Google Sheets or Apple, right? That's why we use Excel, because when you download the data, it's made to download it into those kinds of spreadsheets. Yeah, folks, sorry about that. It took a few minutes for this thing to get all set. And again, I think we spoke about it yesterday. And for the folks who hopefully you're watching these videos in sequence, but you can just start copying labels and you can start copying all the stuff and pasting it, right? You paste it into Notepad to get rid of the formatting, and then you can cut this and go right to your wherever it is that you're working, like that, right? And you can just put your data in there. Right? Control Z undoes it. Okay, so that's how you can just drop it off up here, boom, right? And then obviously you're putting it here. You can make these italics or something, and bold some of these out, change the font a bit, or make the font what you want it to make. But like I said, I'm not typing this in by hand. I'm just copying and pasting, but not copying and pasting directly from a spreadsheet that I download to my spreadsheet. I get rid of the formatting by dropping it off in a Notepad. That clears out the formatting, and then just bring the text in as text, and then it gives a cleaner a cleaner transfer of the text into my spreadsheet, which the version could be different or something. There could be something that we don't necessarily know that could alter how we do all that. Okay, so similar to yesterday's discussion, you're going to have 8 durable goods inputs and whatever, 14 or 12 or however it is, these 7 services, and then the nonprofit institution inputs. And now we'll start with this. We have a residual. See, when we had the nominal model, we didn't have residuals. Now, and I'll tell you why you have a residual. You've got a residual because you have statistically altered data, and that's the error. That's the error term, right? That's in there when you statistically alter your data, you have error terms. That's what you have. So we have 14 residuals, and there's what we have. Okay, and like I said, you should count these numbers up. And actually, what we should have here, we should have this. Yeah, so at least we have it. Those are your indices. You could even have dropped them in there, but we'll sort of leave them there. Okay, so we're going to go to motor vehicles, and again, have some sense of these numbers. So, and again, what these numbers mean, it's not the dollar value for the quarter. It's if the year behaved as the specific quarter behaved, then that's the number. But actually, this particular model, these are the annual. So as we look to our data that we downloaded, we're going to go to the first motor vehicle parts. So this is 300 billion. It's up to about 600 billion. Other durable goods are here. Alt H V value. Okay, that's it. And again, just stop for a second. Motor vehicles and the parts. We were selling it at 300 billion. Now pretty soon we'll be touching $1 trillion, right? 2021 it was 600 billion, and motor vehicle and parts. And I have some idea of recreational goods and vehicles and furnishings and household equipment, and that the household equipment really is gone up. And you could look at the rate. Probably here to here, these couple years, right? We're easily over 400 because people are working home a lot more and want to be set up at home. I think the food and beverages one has to be by itself. I always hit escape to undo my highlighting. This is food and beverages for off-premises consumption. That means what you're buying and selling in a or picking up in ShopRite or Walmart or something. Then clothing and footwear, gasoline. Right, and again, you like this level of detail, right there. What's the gasoline? So 400 billion for gasoline and energy goods, and now we're pretty actually funny enough, pretty even. I apologize for that, folks. 1 second. Sorry about that. So yeah, now again, the annual model is sort of the one that you can sort of understand easy. Yeah, and we're all probably pretty shocked. Let's see what it looks like this year, though. It's up. It's definitely up from a couple years ago, but relatively even number. Let's see what 2022's numbers eventually do look like. The other non-durable goods. So now you want to do your summation for durable goods, right? It's the first entry, comma, these three. Okay. And now you can just drag it to the right. Control R. I got rid of the border. That's why I dragged the second one. If you drag this one over, you're going to drag the border with you, right? So 2 trillion, 3.3 trillion. Durable goods. It's these four summed up. But $1 trillion. Right click, Alt H, get rid of the border. Control R. 2.3 trillion from about once. That's double. And then the goods number. All right, 3.5 trillion. Control R to 5.6. Again, all of these numbers are somewhat double. Okay. So you have these 8 inputs, right? Those 8 inputs for goods. The residual we have, if you want to come down to the bottom here, these addenda. So let's take a look at that for the addenda. So these are usually indices, but these are summations where personal consumption expenditure, excluding food and energy, then just food and energy numbers. And again, surprisingly, pretty consistent. You wouldn't feel like that, but it's relatively consistent in terms of dollars. Now, there could be dramatic declines in quantities being bought and people driving less and things of that nature. That's also something to consider. I'm going to copy these. And there you go. You can watch the patterns of these. Again, 600 billion, still about 600 billion from 10 years ago. Excluding food and energy, that's up almost 3 trillion. Okay, so that's a pretty sizable boost. This is 9 to 12. That's about 3 trillion. Okay, it's different methodologies and things of that nature. Let's do the nonprofit stuff. Escape. So the nonprofit. So we can do. Yeah, let's just break that down a bit. So this is gross. So gross output of nonprofits is there, and then receipts from sales. So now the nonprofits distribute, and we're netting out the number. That's why we do what we do here. And so then what we're going to do, so we're going to say copy, Control right, Alt H, V, special multiply values. Escape. And then you're going to net it up here, the final consumption number. Because what's happening is if nonprofits distribute just like a Walmart distributes, you don't want to double count who's ever buying it, maybe, and maybe the government's even paying, but however, those goods and services are being purchased, you're avoiding double counting by netting it out like that. Okay, serving households, and there's some footnotes. You can wrestle with the footnotes at your convenience. Then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 7. And starting with households and utilities, housing and utilities, what people spend on housing utilities. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other services. Copy. Alt H. Copy. Values. There you go. The housing consumption expenditure for services, you're just adding up these 7. Right? 6.78 trillion. Yeah, 6377. Alt H. Right there. Right. Okay. You have that. There's your services number, and this is equal to sum all your inputs, comma, and you're going to net out those numbers. Your service is 7.1 trillion. 6 instead of 25. 8361, 8372. So yeah, they can be a little, maybe not exactly. Yeah, so who knows? They're off a little bit, some of them, but let's not worry about that right now. Okay, so you're just making the model. This is just your historical base. That's all you're doing. You just made your models what you did. Okay, that's it. They want to have a dollar change and then a percentage change, and that's it. Those are the last couple things we're trying to do here. So you have however many. You had 7 inputs here. You had 2 here. You had another 8 up here. So whatever, your 15, 7, your 17 inputs, right? Whatever it was, 17, 18 with residual, right? So yeah, obviously up here you have to include the residual, all your blue entries, which makes it easy, right? You can just roll through this like a hot knife through butter. These 2, comma, and this one. There you get your top line personal consumption, your 10 trillion number, 10 trillion 655, right? Alt H. Right there, 10 trillion, 10.7, 13.735. Okay, so you have your top line number. The next piece of this, like we've done the whole way, you're going to subtract the components and then add them up. So you're taking the blues, you're subtracting the two blue pieces here. And as you look for recessions and all these other things, right? You're going to sit there and say, hey, we want to figure, we want to figure recession, not a recession. Right there. Durable goods, non-durable goods. Those are all your deltas. And we just added up the deltas. And then for the total sum for all of these, add it up. Okay, 104. Do I have that someplace, right? I do. Oh, yeah, there's your 104. Okay, and then similar, right? You have these 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are all your deltas there. And you can sum the gross for the nonprofits. Right there, the 10. That's how the residual has changed. And then all of these guys, these sort of the 4 addenda here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there. Okay. And services are the summation. Goes to, okay, 31. Okay, see how we did this? All right, so these are just all sort of standalones. So the top one, it's the delta of all the blue inputs, or all the blue deltas. It's down by 139 billion. 139. Just take this over one and just check and make sure. This is up 200 billion 2010, up 200 billion 89, 103. There's this 182, 182. So we're up a trillion almost, right? And whatever it's 21 or something. Yeah, our numbers are slightly different here. So let's. Oh, you know what it is too. It's the 09s probably aren't going to change, but these numbers have been updated. Some of the more recent ones have been updated. I have more updated numbers, so it's in the area, right? It's a trillion, 999 billion, yeah. So 53 billion. We're off. I'm saying so the numbers are updated a bit, so that's why you have that. And then the last piece of this are percentages, and really it's the top line one is what you care about. So you're gonna start at 09 because that's where you have your delta 4, and then you can divide by the 08 top line number. And you're going to take this all the way as far as we can go, only up to 2021. All right, so you had a big dip not a big dip, you had a 3% dip. But notice though that 2020 is the only time you had a dip in these numbers outside of 2009, right? So the consumption numbers, recessions go up and down with the consumption numbers. And now what you're going to do, instead of going piece by piece, you're just going to copy this. You're going to click on goods. You're going to go all the way down. You're going to say paste formulas. And then you'll, every time you see this divide by zero, you're just going to delete. Those are all your sort of, these are all your dead spots. Those are all your dead spots, which are right there. And then just take the whole story here and go, right click, Control R, and you do your whole matrix. And then save, right? Control save. Make sure you, as you do this, you're saving your work. Okay. But there you go. That's what this is supposed to. And again, don't worry about this, the residual and how it's changing and all that stuff. Don't worry about that stuff too much. Yeah, it's about the same here. There was no residual here. It didn't move that much. That's why that division by zero, you're doing the divide by zero nonsense. Yeah. Okay, which is why you have that little blip right there. You go just delete those and not worry about it. Okay, so again, so we did the real personal consumption, we did the nominal, and we'll have it in a video where we go through what the differences are between those. Again, folks, so just getting you ready. You should be watching all the videos in pieces, and we'll take it step by step. That's all I can tell you. Okay, I hope this helped you, folks, and we'll see you soon.